So now we're all very familiar with this articulated stick man with all his joints, and we've had some practice moving him about. But we've also realized that it's quite difficult to put that flesh back on his bones and turn him into a real character. And then putting clothes on top of that obviously is the next step. So this business of creating some substance around the sticks is something which is important. And of course, now that we've got to grips with the joints to some extent, and we have those basics in place, we could go in and instead of using a stick man, so creating a stick man and then trying to build all the way out from that, we can start with random shapes for his body. So if we were to do this for his torso instead of using a stick man, we could then say that these outer corners correspond to the hip and shoulder joints. Just as we've got shoulders here and hips here, these are on the right-hand side. The corners of the rectangle can be those hip and shoulder joints. So let's go and have a look at what we can do. If I recreate the same pose, here we go, elbow, wrist, hand going this way, and then we've got elbow, wrist, hand going this way, leg, knee and ankle, and then foot. And here we go, knee, ankle, and foot. So it's much the same pose, and we can put our head on the shoulders, put in our eyes, and we've got our chap doing a similar thing. I have changed up the expression a little bit. The other thing that you'll see that I've done here is that I've sunk his head much more onto his body, because it's very common to end up with rather too long a neck when we start with the stick man. The tendency is that the neck gets longer and longer. Not quite giraffe-like, but sometimes it can feel like that. And if you look at this chap on the right with his rectangular body, you'll see that he looks pretty much like Quattro. I mean, you can imagine that Quattro could have started off like this. So if we put in some little legs, these legs are a bit long for Quattro, but you get the idea. Here we go with legs. And we'll make his arms kind of go like this, because Quattro's arms are sort of tapered. And then if we put an ear in here and make his hair go like this, you've kind of got a Quattro-y like thing going on. So you can see that this is an approach that can really work. But if you wanted to have a different kind of shape of body, so you don't just want a rectangle, imagine you want something kind of rounded. So let's go with what I call a blob. And if we imagine that it's round like this, so this could be the waist, put the leg like this, and another leg like that. So we've still got the leg running, and the joints. We've still got the arm pointing that way, and this arm pointing that way, and I'm kind of going off the page, but that's okay. And then we can put a head onto this body. And there again, now you've got a more rounded body. So you can go in and say, all right, all this below the waistline is trousers. I'm going to color that in. I'm going to make these legs a little bit more substantial. These are trousers. And hey presto, suddenly you've got a more rounded body. And if we want to do the arms again, say that we're going to give him a shirt, we imagine it's easier to do shirts in parts. So this part is the part around the body, and then these are the sleeves. You imagine how the sleeves kind of operate with gravity. There we go, sleeves, shirt body. We can put in some shirt points like this if we want, and we could even give him buttons down the front. And suddenly you've got him with a little bit of clothing. So what if we wanted something which wasn't just a blobby body? What if we wanted a body which had a little bit more differential between the top half and the bottom? Then we go for what I call a bean. So if we start with a little circle on the top and a bigger circle at the bottom like this, and I tend to do one side like that. So it's sort of like a kidney bean shape like that. Let's do our leg again, and this leg again. And we'll put the arm out, doing what it's done so far. That forearm is a bit long, so let me reduce it. And there we go, we've got the arm. Actually, you know what? I'm going to move that arm up because, of course, that's not his head. That's his upper body. And then we put a head on here, eyes and mouth. And we've got it all going on again. So again, we've got our body like this. Let's imagine that these might be trousers. Color it all in. And before you know it, you've got a body again. We can put in the shirt like this and like this, and put in those shirt points and some buttons. And suddenly you've got a person with more interesting body shape. So here we have Mr. Rectangle, here we have Mr. Blob, and here we have Mr. Bean. So you can see how we start to get some roundedness if we make our clothes round like this. So here we go on the left, you can see by just adding this roundedness here around the belly, you end up with a sense of roundness in the clothes. And then you can continue that roundness with your color here. It sort of shows that lower belly shape. And that's how you end up with characters which are not perfectly human, but are more interesting than just a straight stick man or a rectangle.